4-lane highway, 4-lane highway, and off of the intersection in tall grass, about 10 feet from the sidewalk, they found Lindsay's body.
Welcome to Street Stories, a podcast of real, raw, and unfiltered stories of homelessness told by Skip Finkfish, founder and pastor of Word on the Street Homeless Ministries. Please be advised these stories are for a mature audience. Our goal is to bring you as close to the reality of homelessness as we can, one story at a time.
Lindsay was a fighter, and I mean a fighter. Believe it or not, I can relate to fighters because much younger in my life, I was a fighter as well. Didn't really have much time for arguing with people or putting up with nonsense or whatever. I'd rather knock you out than spend the time. Long time ago. But I am, please don't take this wrong, I am thankful that I have a little tiny smidge of that still deep in my core. Because I think it's part of what encourages me to maybe go to some of the places I go, or, not everybody will walk around in an abandoned building at 3 o'clock in the morning looking for people. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because I got a little tiny bit of that still inside of me somewhere. Anyway, Lindsay was a fighter. And Lindsay was also a skilled construction, what do you call that? A guy that is over everything? A contractor. Lindsay was a contractor, owned his own company, had skilled men working under him, licensed, insured, building everything from homes to commercial buildings. He was very skilled. Married, a son, and living a pretty good life. Enter cocaine. And when I met Lindsay for the very first time, it was for a kind of a lunch thing that I was doing on the street at a local park here in Orlando. And he came to that, and he was hungry. Shoulder length hair, a nose that looked like it had been broken 3 or 4 times, cauliflower ears, which you used to see on the pro wrestlers back when I was a kid, and just from all the fighting that he had been involved in, I recognized these things and, kind of figured him out a little bit when I first saw him at that event. And so he got something to eat, and he kind of paced around a little bit, kept his distance from everybody, and left. So that was my first exposure to Lindsay. Came back again, and then one Sunday, he came about, it must be at least 8 or 9 miles to the Sunday dinner. He walked to the Sunday dinner. And on that particular Sunday, I was teaching on the soils, the parable of the soils, the 4 soils in the Gospels. And somehow, some way, God used the message on the 4 soils to bring Lindsay to himself, to save Lindsay. And he had in our conversations no place for God, no belief in God, angry, lost everything, lost his business, lost his family, lost his wife, lost his son, lost everything, and was rough homeless, and addicted to cocaine and buying and selling. And somehow the parable of the soils softened his heart and he trusted Christ. We became really close. I worked with him to get back into relationship, friendship with his wife and his son, who was 19 at the time and going into the Air Force. And so he never got back together with them as in remarrying or moving in or whatever, but maintained relationship with them and actually grew into a pretty good relationship with his son. But Lindsay was hardcore. Lindsay was hardcore homeless and just lost everything and wasn't working and was addicted. I would go and sit with Lindsay in the woods, sometimes for 2-3 hours at a time. And we would just sit there on these plastic milk crates and just either stare or we may talk softly or whatever. He may have some questions for me, or sometimes we would just sit there beside each other and nothing was happening as far as conversation was concerned. It looked like nothing was going on. But what was going on was a man who was tormented, who was sitting there with someone that he trusted, who told him about Christ, and he felt unthreatened, and he felt safe, and he felt whatever modicum of peace that you could feel in his kind of life. He was experiencing by just sitting there with me. Word of the Street Homeless Ministries has a 3-point ministry philosophy. The whole ministry runs on 3 points. Always show up, lift up the name of Christ while there, move on, and repeat. It's the always show up part that is the most challenging part of, I think, any ministry, but especially Word on the Street. Because that showing up might be at 3 o'clock in the morning. That showing up might be in a thunderstorm. That showing up might be following a hurricane and a branch falling out of a tree and crushing a tent. That might, not to over dramatize it, but that might be showing up with gunfire in the distance. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. You need to show up. If I've made my promise to the Lord that, oh, I just touched the microphone. Sorry about that. I've made my promise to the Lord that everyone he brings across my path, I will talk to, and everyone who contacts me, if he leads them to me, I'm going to show up. That's the hard part. So it was a matter of, in Lindsay's life, it was simply those times of solace, those times of some kind of peace. He wasn't doing drugs. He wasn't angry. He wasn't fighting. He was at some part of peace in his life simply because I showed up. May I encourage you, when people come sometimes on like the Sunday dinner and they want, I want to serve, I want to serve, I want to serve. Well, what they mean is they want to be behind the table, because you see, behind the table, no offense to those who serve, please, need all the servers I can get. But behind the table, it's kind of like behind the pulpit for a preacher on a Sunday morning. Behind the pulpit is a safe zone. You got this piece of furniture in front of you, and there's a space between the pulpit and the front row, which we in the ministry refer to affectionately as the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. And in something like Word on the Street, see, you don't have a DMZ. You don't have a piece of furniture. It's one-on-one. It's quiet times with a guy like Lindsay in the woods. So when people show up on a Sunday and say, I want to serve, what can I do? I'll point to a chair or I'll point to one of the benches as we're setting up. And I say to them, go over there and sit in that spot. And don't make conversation. Listen. Go over and sit in that spot and listen to whoever sits down beside you for the next hour. Listen. That's always showing up. That's part of showing up. So anyway, I developed a really good relationship with Lindsay. He was still fighting, and he was still doing drugs, and he was still selling. One day he called me and he said, I have to move. I have to move. I need to leave everything. I need to move now. Can you help me move? And I said, well, the stuff that you have is getting a little bit older. So he picked out a spot like 5 or 6 miles from his camp in a completely isolated area because he said he needed to get away from some situations and some people. So I went and I picked him up, and I had a new tent, and I had new supplies for him, and I took him south of where he was, and set him up in a whole new setting, in a secluded spot by himself. I went out of town on one of my ministry trips, and when I got back, I couldn't find Lindsay. I couldn't find him, and I couldn't. He wasn't answering. I couldn't find him. So after a couple of days of searching, one of the other homeless guys came to me and said, "Lindsay's dead." I said, "Where? How? What? Why?" He said that his body was found, and he told me what intersection, and it's a major intersection, 4-lane highway, 4-lane highway, and off of the intersection in tall grass, about 10 feet from the sidewalk, they found Lindsay's body. By the reports that I got from the police, it had been laying there for close to 2 weeks. Which means that after I moved him, he went back. And by the looks of his body, first of all, it was quite deteriorated. Birds had eaten out his eyes. His head was smashed. So what happened was someone hit him in the head with a board or a pipe or something like that, and broke his skull. And he died there on the spot. It is a heavy, heavy drug area. I go there sometimes, and if I stand on that particular corner, dealers come and try to sell me. I'm standing there in my jeans and my everyday, and I got an old hat on and my backpack, and I look homeless. I get mistaken for homeless all the time. But I'll have them come up and try to sell me on the corner. And there are times that I go there and pick up needles off of the ground on that area so that I can dispose of them. So 100% drug deal gone bad. Drug deal gone bad. I don't know if he owed somebody or if somebody owed him or what happened. Something, somehow, some kind of a fight ensued, and he got his head smashed. So here you have a man who's an educated man. His math was amazing. When he would do, because we would talk about it, and I mean, as you're constructing things, measurements are important. And the way that he could do math and cipher and figure all these things out, and we would talk, and it was amazing. So you have an educated man with a wife and a son in the Air Force, owned his own construction company, had men working under him, had a good life by society's standard. Enter cocaine. Please, if you are struggling, get help. You can contact me. You can message me. I don't care where you are. You can message me through Messenger on Facebook or through the Watts page, wattsforhomeless.com. We have messages right on the page. Message me. Talk. I'll listen. I won't judge you. I won't separate from you. I won't. There's no judgment here. But get help, because it will ruin you and it will kill you. I miss Lindsay. He was a special kind of man. I am quite confident that the peace that he is experiencing now in Christ, he never experienced on the earth. And that brings me peace. God bless.
Thank you for watching this episode of Street Stories, brought to you by Word on the Street Homeless Ministries. Please follow us on Facebook at Watts for Homeless and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Watts for Homeless. If you would like to learn more information about our ministry here in Orlando, Florida, you can visit us at wattsforhomeless.com. And if you would like to be a monthly donor or give a one-time donation, you can visit wattsforhomeless.com/give. Thank you.